Gabriela, thanks. I think Gabriela wants to ask you a
Sim, sim,
question.
sim.
Okay. Sorry.
Vou falar em português, ok? Sim.
Yes, I would. I'm going to ask it in Portuguese. Yes. So, Joaquim, I've been thinking this book seems to be a mixture of your own story and the story of a country. And in my opinion, one of the topics here is identity. Many identities, of course, your own as a person, the identity of Cape Verde, of Portugal. So all this mixture, this variety of identity. So I would like to talk a little bit about this, about identity. So I can imagine that writing this book might have been a journey for you within your own identity. So maybe you might have even changed the way you identify yourself and how you understand your own identity. So maybe there was this change happening, this process during the production of this book. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that. Yes, yes, definitely. Identity is always one topic in all of my books. And in my opinion, whenever we're reading literature written by other authors, we see a lot of that. It may be the Jews in Europe or in the USA or South American writers with African origin everywhere. And in my case, these are the things that I've read. My father was Portuguese and my mother was Cape Verdean. And I took this trip when I was a child and we moved to Lisbon, me and my brothers. And we were living in a neighborhood where there was there were no other African families. We were the only one. We came from Cape Verde. We spoke Criollo. We ate typical food from Cape Verde. We listened to the music. We could play the guitar. So we felt like living in an island. We came from an island and we took this island along into a neighborhood in Lisbon and we remained living as an island within Lisbon, inside that apartment. Whenever we left the house, we left the apartment, we turned into Portuguese. When we were in contact with our friends, with the other people, we were Portuguese. So that kind of develops an alternative identity. Within the family, we had one identity, but whenever we left the apartment, we in a way abandoned our culture and adapted to our colleagues, to our friends at school. And identity is definitely one of my favorite topics. I find it very intriguing to discuss identity. It's the search for oneself. It's always a journey. It's a journey we're going to take all along our lives. So my son, who's 13, I see in his case that the questions of identity are also very present for him. In a way, it is an attempt to find our own place in the world. Whenever we leave our own country, young people who leave Portugal and go to England, to Sweden, whatever, they adopt a new culture. And with that, there is a gain. They end up getting a new identity, adding a new identity to themselves. And this is something that has been happening ever since people have been in movement. I believe that whenever you get in touch with a new culture, this new culture is going to get in contact with the original culture. And this can be seen in movies and art, in literature, of course, because this is part of our identity and we produce art based on our identity. We reflect our literary production, our existence as human beings based on our own identity.
Just add something early because it relates to the previous answer I gave. I think another element of the identity, or the search for identity in the book, we have as Joaquim was saying, the being transported from the islands to Lisbon. Then you have him as an older man remembering his childhood. But I think maybe there's also the question of class and trying to sort of interrogate or look back at his stepfather, trying to understand who he was, while, as I said, walking along with intellectual ideas and trying to legitimize them or interrogate them compared to previous generations of his family that wouldn't have had the luxury or the education to have thought or speculated on such things. So that was another thing I was aware of as a translator.